Hey everyone, brand new episode of the David Seaman Hour. Today's guest is going to be me because I have some important news updates that I think you guys will be interested in before heading out into your weekend. And yesterday's guest, Dr. David Brin, the astrophysicist and a very popular sci-fi author. One of his books has been turned into a major motion picture. He's on the board at NASA, one of their boards. Very intelligent guy. You should download that episode. That's the last episode. You can get it on iTunes, on the podcast app, or through Stitcher, or on Pocket Cast. And just search for David Seaman Hour, and that one will come up. And when you search on iTunes, be sure to hit subscribe free as well, so that all of the new episodes come to your phone or your laptop or whatever immediately. And hold on one second here. I'm going to turn off my phone. But, okay, so yesterday I didn't want to interrupt him too much because I could just tell that if I interrupted him and didn't give him the chance to get his really interesting theories out there, then I would have people on Twitter saying, like, why couldn't you shut up? And I think it's very important when you're a host of a show to get out of your own way and not let your ego take over. One of the things that I actually liked about Larry King for many years, before CNN got really bad, one of the things I liked about him was that you never really knew his opinion on things, and he would just ask the simple questions that most viewers out there had, and then he would sit there with his, his hand on his chin and go, oh, okay, tell me about this. But he was just there to interview the person. He wasn't there to shove his own views into every possible segment, and that's sort of how I see the David Seaman Hour. When we get a famous or an influential guest on, I want them to express their views. I don't want it to be all about me. I don't think that's an appropriate way to host a show. Certainly not when I consider that to be one of the major problems with the mainstream media, where somebody like Rachel Maddow, most of her show on MSNBC is just her giving her opinion when she should be interviewing experts who are unbiased and are not partisan hacks. And she should be, with MSNBC's resources, sending correspondents out into the real world to figure things out and to get the truth for viewers. And the same thing with Rush Limbaugh. That's a guy who just sits there and gives his own opinion on stuff for hours. We're talking about hours, just sits there. I don't really listen to much Rush Limbaugh because I don't like him, but the ones I've listened to, it seems like he never has any guests on. It's always just him. And that's not what I want the David Seaman Hour to be, but sometimes I do have things that I want to share with you guys. So the first one is this phenomenon over the last 24 hours that I find really quite Orwellian and unsettling. So the new jobs numbers came out from the government, I believe the Department of Labor Statistics, and or the Bureau of Labor Statistics, rather, and the numbers are a little too good to be true. 7.8% unemployment, which sounds great, and I have no doubt, I don't believe they committed fraud. I have no doubt that based on their calculations, the unemployment rate is 7.8%. However, the basis for their calculations are nonsense, because anecdotally, we know that the unemployment rate is much higher. People around my age and people in their 30s and early 40s, a lot of these people are not getting by. And people my parents' age, collectively as a generation, a lot of them have lost about half of their wealth since the start of the economic crisis around 2006, early 2007. So we know that people aren't doing well, and we know that the unemployment rate is not 7.8%. There is massive underemployment as well, where somebody is maybe only working a couple days a week at a minimum wage job, and that's certainly not enough to get by, certainly not enough to pay down their debts, but in the eyes of the government, they are gainfully employed and happy as can be. So anyway, what has emerged over the last 24 hours, some people, including the former CEO of General Electric, Jack Welch, have called these numbers out, and they said that it's not an accurate representation of the unemployment picture in this country, and the government is sugarcoating the data. And the response from the mainstream media has been harsh. This is the headline of an article in The Atlantic. Meet the incredible incoherent jobs report truthers. They're using that word truther, which was originally tied to people who questioned the official government story on 9/11. And then in Forbes, this is on Forbes' website today, here's the headline: Meet the job truthers. Obama enemies suggest a conspiracy in today's jobs numbers. And here's an article on Gawker. Jack Welch is a jobs truther, the birth of a conspiracy theory. So we have a push by the mainstream media, and Gawker is mainstream at this point. I mean, they're a very large online publication. To label these people questioning the data as truthers, and to use the word truther as an insult and as a dirty word. Isn't a truther just somebody who's seeking the truth? This is really quite Orwellian. This is like newspeak. That, we should immediately condemn and call somebody a weirdo if they're trying to pursue the truth and if they're questioning official government data. It is not anti-American or unpatriotic to say this. Most of what the government puts out, especially when it's something important like the economy or the wars overseas, are lies, or at the very least, not the complete truth. We saw this with false pretenses going into Iraq. We've seen this with the progress in Afghanistan. We've seen this with so many things. The government massages data. It releases things that make them look better than they actually are. They're rarely honest. And like I said, sometimes they lie by just giving you the incomplete truth. And so I think it is highly dangerous that all these people in the mainstream media are accusing guys like Jack Welch of being truthers, these unpatriotic truthers questioning the government. You're supposed to question the government, and you know in your gut. I hate to rely on emotion, but you know in your gut, and you know based on every single person in your circle of friends, that the 7.8% unemployment number is bullshit. It is complete bullshit. It needs to be a Snopes article. Moving on from that, Esquire magazine, which is one of my favorite men's magazines, they did a blog post yesterday on their website, Esquire.com, entitled The NDAA Decision and the Unknown Power of Obama. And apologies, this wasn't yesterday, it was 2 days ago, October 3rd. And I want to quote from part of this. Here's the first paragraph. Let's be clear, Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act is in the National Defense Authorization Act because the current president wants it in there, and because the current president wants the power to detain indefinitely anyone he and the intelligence community see as a threat, whether that person is an American or not. If that weren't the case, he never would have signed it. If that weren't the case, he wouldn't have sent the Department of Justice into court to fight the lower court's stay of that specific provision in the bill. And then later on in the article, the fact is that we don't know how this power is being used right now. The fact is that if someone were to come forward and anonymously provide proof that this power is being abused, history says that the White House would move heaven and earth to run that whistleblower to ground and toss him in the clink if it so desired. This is a very extensive redefinition of the president's power. Hell, it's a very extensive redefinition of the United States of America, and it is worthy of extensive public discussion. That was Charles P. Pierce on Esquire's website. So it's slowly getting out there. It's seeping out into the mainstream. And again, Esquire is about as mainstream as they come. This isn't, some site with an agenda. So, Esquire's only agenda is to get you to drink expensive liquor and to buy like $300 man purses that you don't need. So there we have it. And I was on Kevin Pereira's show yesterday, his first episode of his podcast. Really great guy, really smart, and I love the fact that he has his own show now and that he has the balls to talk about these issues and still keep things funny and fast-paced. I mean, he's a great host, and he's going to definitely be a good addition to the podcast ecosphere. And that's really it. Like I said, I don't need to ramble for hours like Rush Limbaugh. That's what I wanted to tell you guys about, that I think it's wrong that the mainstream media is villainizing people who are seeking the truth as truthers. If somebody uses truther as an insult, you should correct them. And if somebody uses libertarian as an insult, even though I'm not a libertarian, I correct people like that because I go, really, you're against somebody who's in favor of more personal liberties? That makes you an asshole. I mean, you're against somebody who's in favor of those things? That makes you an asshole. There's nothing wrong with libertarians. And so have a great weekend. I will be in LA pretty soon to hang out with some of you guys, but more importantly, to do some shows out there and take things to the next level, as always. And if you want to, a couple of people have asked me how to contribute money to me so that I can buy better microphones for the show. And I might buy, because I think the sound quality and the production quality is fine right now, but I want to pay for a professional intro, and I want to get a couple of real studio mics in here. And also in this room, it's a great room for turning into an actual studio. I want to buy a second desk and put some of that soundproofing stuff, that weirdly shaped foam that goes on the ceiling. I think it will reduce the echo in here. And also, if we have a professional-looking studio, whenever a politician or newsmaker is in the South Florida area, or if they're near Miami or Fort Lauderdale, then we can just have them on the show, which is pretty cool. So if you want to help contribute, just blast some money my way. The PayPal account is dseaman@gmail.com, DSEAMAN@gmail.com. If you just want to send, $5 or $10 my way, I mean, I know that thousands of you guys listen, so it will add up, and we'll have more than enough money to buy some awesome mics and turn this into a more professional thing. Thank you so much, and that's not the email you can reach me at. If you want to, that just happens to be my PayPal account because I've had that for years. If you need to reach me for any reason, as always, I'm on Twitter, D_Seaman, or you can just search for David Seaman on Twitter. I'm the first result. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you check out the David Brin episode. When you have an hour to kill, it is a really fascinating episode. I'm so glad I got him on the show. And coming up tomorrow, we have Mac Danzig on the show, MMA fighter. This is a guy who fights for a living, fights other human beings. That's pretty cool. MMA fighter, also a photographer, and has some very strong political views as well. He was recently on Joe Rogan's show, and I don't want to seem like I'm poaching any of Joe Rogan's guests, but he was great on that show. And then Mac and I connected on Twitter, and yeah, I feel like it's going to be a great episode. So that's coming out tomorrow. And then next week, either on Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to be speaking with Stephen Kotak. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name properly, but he is the president, I believe, of The Week, which is a very big magazine, and also Mental Floss. I think he's the editor-in-chief of that. And he's just an all-around publishing magnate, a media executive. He is one of the top people under British billionaire Felix Dennis, the Dennis publishing empire, which includes like Maxim magazine and all these different publications. So I'm going to be talking to him about the future of media and why he thinks it is that certain topics are underreported, and just sort of how internet media is forcing old school media to change its business model and what's going to happen in the future. Because there's always going to be media. You're listening to this podcast. You may not be watching TV or some boring like CBS Evening News shit, but you're still getting informed. And I think people are actually, in some ways, more informed than ever before. They're just not consuming traditional news because they know it's become a lie. So they're seeking out information on Twitter, they're downloading good podcasts, and they're contributing to the discussion. In human history, we have never had more citizen journalists, and that's all because of the modern smartphone. You always have, now if you have like an iPhone or an Android, you always have an HD camera on you, and that makes you a citizen journalist if some shit goes down and you happen to be there. Thank you for listening, and have a great weekend.